Welcome to Spiritual Psychology. My name's Renee LaValle McKenna, and I bring my 30-plus years as a recovering addict and ex-crazy person turned therapist and shamanic healer to bring you snackable teachings on spirituality, psychology, and all things personal growth. And today I want to talk about the very potent practice of beginning with the end in mind. And this is part 3 of my 8-part series on Stephen Covey's groundbreaking book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And beginning with the end in mind is habit number 2. And these practices all work together. So if you want to check out habit number 1, go to episode 232, Be Proactive. And if you're familiar with any of modern manifestation processes that are popular in the neo-spiritual realms, this habit number 2 has echoes of some of the manifestation processes, but there's nothing magical nor mystical about this. It is incredibly practical and a tool I have used in just about every area of my life since I discovered it decades ago. And it's based on a very simple and logical concept of if I want to go somewhere, I need to know where I want to go. I have an appointment later today on 8th and West 35th Street in Midtown Manhattan. I have an address and a destination and a time frame that I need to be there. I can take the A train. I can take the 1 train. I can take the number 11 bus. I could take a cab, an Uber, a Lyft, ride my city bike. I call them my city bike, even though there's 50,000 of them all over Manhattan. I love my city bikes. Or because I'm a part-time New Yorker now, I could actually walk. I'm in the Upper West Side, and it's 2.5 miles. It's about an hour walk. It's one of the things I absolutely love about New York City is that people walk everywhere. The streets are filled with high-functioning people, and the pace of walking New Yorkers is so intense and athletic. One of my favorite things to do is to find someone who's walking at a really good clip and pace them. I give them enough space so that it's not creepy, and I try to match my steps to theirs. Dude, some of these people walk so fast, it is aerobic exercise. And if you're walking to get places, you get there faster when you walk fast. People walk in the rain, they walk in the snow, because there's no other choice. In fact, one of my favorite quotes I found on this subreddit called All Things New York or something like that. And it said, I walked 12 miles today by accident. And when I travel other places now, I realize how sedentary we've become. For a long time, even when I lived in San Francisco, my walking exercise was walking the dogs or walking out to my car. Humans are built for walking. It keeps us moving. If you don't use it, you lose it. You'll see people 95 years old walking down the street with their groceries in their little carts all along Broadway in Amsterdam. It's very inspiring for me because one of the habits, this is a life habit, not one of the 7 habits that I include in my life now, is some kind of daily exercise and movement. Because I aspire to be 95, schlepping my groceries in a still, vital, and strong body. And that doesn't happen by laying around on the couch. So if I want to get to 8th Avenue and West 35th Street, I have a variety of choices of how I get there, and they'll each give me a different experience. But if I have no idea where I'm going, I won't make it to that appointment, which could be fine, and wandering around our life aimlessly can be quite enjoyable and fun. I often wander through Central Park, the trees and the little squirrels and all the people walking their dogs. I gotta tell you, dog fashion in the winter in New York is its own whole thing. Oh my goodness, I saw a dog yesterday with sneakers on. Literally, so funny. Anyway, with his little matching puffy coat. It was 26 degrees out, so I had my sneakers and long puffy coat on too. But many of us wander around our life with no clear idea of where we're going. And although it is said that all who wander are not lost, I know I was a lost wanderer for many years in my life. And although I actually have a fair amount of open time and space in my schedule for wandering, literal wandering around the city of New York or the parks and streets of Oakland, California, the 2 places that I'm spending most of my time these days. And I also allow a fair amount of time for mental, emotional, and inspirational walking through journaling, meditation, exploring my own inner world, and my conversation with the goddess. Those wandering times are my personal conversation with God. Wonder what the universe wants to serve up for me today. And the serendipity that can unfold unexpectedly, a curious, creative, wandering open space. But just like breathing in and breathing out, it needs to be a balance of openness and wandering, and planning and clear intentions. Clarifying our own plans and intentions, deciding what we want in our life is perhaps the most important work we can do. Otherwise, who's deciding where I go today, tomorrow, next year, or in my entire life path? And we can defer those choices of where we're going and what our experience is to others. We can defer it to our culture, to our family, to our religion, or to our boss. If we believe that those people, those organizations, those institutions have our highest good in mind, and we feel happy and self-satisfied in our daily life experience, then that's great. But if we're unsatisfied, unfulfilled, unsure, or lost in our wandering, we may want to take some time to really decide what is important to me. Where do I want to go in my life this week, this month, this year, or this decade? And we don't have to map out specifics. We can just work with principles, and that will get us moving in the direction that we really want to go. And the interactive universe that we are a part of, which is always listening to us, will support us and fill in those details in ways we couldn't imagine for ourselves all along the way. And I'll be honest, I actually have come to live my life this way. Setting larger intentions, spreading seeds, and knocking on doors to see where and how they might manifest themselves. Regularly reminding myself to enjoy the journey as best I can every step along the way. And honestly, most of my seeds don't grow and most of those doors don't open. But what doesn't work out in my life is information. Not that one, not that one, not that one. When the door opens or the seed grows, then I know, oh, okay, this is where I need to focus. That's my conversation with Source. I've been looking for a place to teach in person, literally for years. I haven't found it yet. Of course, we had that COVID thing happen, but I've tried diligently to find a space and a community to serve with my spiritual psychology work here in New York. I can tell you 50 funny stories of all different ways those things didn't work out. Same thing has happened for me in the Bay Area. And so I'm going to have a little adventure and do some exploration in Los Angeles. Because my goal, my life work, my mission statement, which comes out of this habit of beginning with the end in mind, I'll talk about mission statements in a minute. My life work is to bring the practices and processes of the spiritual psychology work to all who need it. I have no idea what the scope of that is going to be. I'm leaving it very open-ended. It has certainly served many people up to this point, and I wrote my book, Allies and Demons. This podcast is an entryway for many into the work that has so healed and transformed my life. It's led me to a mentorship program that actually wasn't my idea, to teach other therapists, healers, and even people in corporate leadership how to apply grounded spiritual perspectives and transformational tools into their work. Ultimately, I hope to teach the teachers, make myself irrelevant. I kind of like being irrelevant. Gives me more time to wander. And eventually, we all become irrelevant. But before that, we live a life and then we die. And perhaps one of the most profound little practices that we can do to begin with the end in mind is to consider the beginning right now. Today is the first day of the rest of my life. And the end is my funeral. And I really encourage you to do this. So sit down with a journal or a piece of paper or your laptop and consider if you were able to be present at your own funeral, and what would you like people to say about you and your life at your funeral? That will tell you what's important to you on the deepest level. Do you want people to say that you are loving, generous, funny, creative, hardworking? Would you like to hear that you were brave, inspiring, compassionate, or adventurous? Or would they say that you were lazy, mean, anxious, guilty, or angry most of the time? At the end of our time here, we don't get to take any of the material items with us, but we all leave a legacy here, like it or not. And what would we like that legacy to be? And it may be a legacy of wealth, power, security, or great ideas. It may be a legacy of loyalty, commitment, integrity, or peace. But when we begin with the end in mind, and this is the beginning at any moment, we can envision the life we want to live and begin to get a sense of what direction we want to go in before we take action. If I want to get to 8th and West 35th, I need to go south. That's a really good start, just to turn the cruise ship moving in the right direction. That's certainly what happened for me when I got clean and sober from drugs and alcohol. I felt really bad about myself and my life, and the only way I knew how to manage how crappy, hopeless, shame-filled, and bitter I had become was to blot that out with more drugs and alcohol, with a little food and emotionally unavailable men mixed in there. I had a veritable smorgasbord of addictions to choose from to distract myself from my existential suffering. And again, we do live in a universe that cares for us. How I came to get sober, at least initially, had very little to do for me. One of those doors flung open wide and to lead into a 12-step meeting. A fat little Jewish woman escorted me inside. And there was a bar room across the street. And we get many choices of the doorways we walk through. The quality and experiences in our life are determined by those choices that we make. And it was through not using mind and mood-altering substances and behaviors. And I didn't get all better all at once. That took a really long time, but one at a time, pick the one that will kill you first. By removing the blocks and starting to practice living spiritual principles, my deeper purpose, my values, and my direction ultimately became clear. And we all have work to do here. Every one of us, or we wouldn't be here. What are we here to bring, and what are we here to receive? That's the breathing in and breathing out of a human life. And we don't necessarily have to know what that is. Most of us don't. The clarity that I have now did not completely fall into line until I was in my mid-50s. We get a long time here to figure this thing out. But this development of a personal mission statement that captures my core values, my own guiding principles, and vision for my life that I created decades ago through this particular work, beginning with the end in mind. This mission statement has been a compass that has helped me make decisions and prioritize my actions and how they align with that purpose ever since I did it. And that little process of writing your own obituary or listening in to what people say at your own funeral is a really good place to start to clarify and define what's really important. My own core values and the purpose that I would like to have here in this world, in this lifetime. And some of the other things that we might consider when crafting our personal mission statement is to reflect on, what are we good at? What are my skills and abilities? And what do I enjoy? I got to tell you, I'm at a place in a space in my life now where almost everything I do, I enjoy doing. I tend to not do things I don't enjoy. And that creates more joy. And the wise ones in many traditions tell us that. Follow your joy. So one of the questions in developing our mission statement, if we want joy in our life, even opening to that possibility, is what brings me joy? That can be part of the goal. We might look at our personality traits, understanding how I really operate and interact with other people. Am I an introvert? Am I an extrovert? Most of us are a complex mix of both, and they're both super valid. I'm here to be who I am. You are here to be who you are, not who other people want you to be, or even my perceptions. This is more twisted than what most of us do, trying to be what I think you want me to be, which may not even be true, which is often 2 steps removed from who I really am. And this can bring us right to some of the core work most of us need to do with, what is my relationship with Source? Am I a valid, worthy person just the way I am? And I'm going to tell you the answer is yes before we start, but we need to lean into what is good about us rather than focusing on all the things that need work. Each person is like a little garden. Do we want to water the weeds or do we want to water the vegetables and flowers? Now, we need to pull the weeds or they will choke out the fruits and flowers. but it is in tending to the produce that we are productive. And the garden becomes beautiful and a benefit to others. So one person's weed may be another person's wonder. Dandelions, thistle, milkweed, they all have their place. And so it's really valuable to look within myself, clarifying what really matters most and what do I aspire to achieve. And so a well-crafted personal mission statement is typically very short. It's often just a sentence or two, and it encapsulates the essence of myself and my intention. So, for example, it might express a commitment to continuous learning, a dedication to helping others, or a focus on personal integrity or being kind and loving. My personal mission statement is to use all of my gifts and talents for the benefit of the most people and myself. And regularly reviewing and updating our personal mission statement ensures that it remains aligned with our evolving goals and values. It provides a consistent source of motivation and direction throughout our life. I wrote my personal mission statement in my early 30s. I was on the other side of 2 failed businesses, a divorce, and a bankruptcy. And it was obvious my ideas were not working out in the way that I had hoped. And loss, pain, and failure can make us really open-minded. And I was open-minded at that point. Had turned to Thich Nhat Hanh and a deep Buddhist practice of surrender, mindfulness, trying to find joy in the present moment. Because the future wasn't looking so good. And I came across this book, I think in a client's house when I was house cleaning, because I was cleaning houses to pay the rent. And I did this work that I'm telling you about right now. And that mission statement remains as central to me today as it did 30 years ago. And it has been revised just within the last probably 8 or 10 years. I added myself into that statement. Previously, my mission statement was to use my gifts and talents for the benefit of the most people. It became clear that I just wasn't feeling it myself. And so I added myself for my benefit as well. I've come to see that if I am healthy and happy, then the quality of what I produce is exponentially better. And so now my mission is to use my gifts and talents for the benefit of the most people and myself. And now I'm feeling it. So I intermittently pull tarot cards for myself. And I love the idea that every card is an aspect of ourself. And I pulled the 3 of Pentacles, which is a picture of a stonemason and 2 architects building a cathedral. If you want to build a cathedral, you have to have a plan. I recently visited the Cathedral of St. John the Divine. That's about 20 blocks from where I am right now. It's one of the largest cathedrals in the world. I have to say I was deeply disappointed. It's a beautiful space. There's just one. There's one aspect of the divine feminine in that entire massive structure. One window to Mary. That's a whole other conversation. Ignorance, a complete lack of recognition of the divine feminine, but I'm not going to get on that soapbox now. So if you want to build a cathedral or even a little shed, you need to begin with a plan in mind. And Stephen Covey says everything's created twice, first in our mind and then in reality. So as we develop this vision, we can get a sense of our direction and avoid being reactive or aimless. Again, am I going south or north today to make my appointment midtown? And it can help to clarify the roles that we play in our life. Am I a parent? Am I a professional? Am I a community member? And we can break this out into setting meaningful goals for each of these roles that reflect our long-term vision and values. And they might be different in different areas of our life. Certainly my goals for my physical body through exercise and intermittent fasting have nothing to do, or at least are very different from, my goals and values as a parent, as a lover, as a therapist and mentor. Although there is absolutely threads between all of them, and they all align with my mission statement. And if we want to go deeper in this, we can spend some really positive time visualizing our ideal future. Imagine where we want to be in 5, 10, 20 years, 50 years. And just play with it. Think big. What would you do if you had no fear? And what we're really talking about is principle-centered living. And this visioning of what we might optimally want for ourselves can help us clarify these values of what's really important to us. And this is principle-centered living. And by focusing on principles rather than external circumstances in our daily wanderings, we can create a stable foundation for decision-making. So universal principles like fairness, integrity, contribution, honesty, generosity, service. These are the foundation to build our shed, our house, or our cathedral. And once we get a sense of where we want to go, then we can start in the following habits to break down our vision into actionable steps that are specific, measurable, achievable, and relevant to get us where we want to go. So the benefits of beginning with the end in mind are the development of clarity and focus, and get a clear sense of the direction we want to go and help avoid distractions. We know where we're going. We can be proactive in our decision making. Check that our choices are aligning with our long-term goals rather than being reactive to immediate pressures. Beginning with the end in mind encourages our intentionality in all aspects of our life, leading to greater fulfillment from this purpose-driven perspective. And if you don't like purpose-driven, it could be purpose-guided. So beginning with the end in mind allows us to take control of our destiny and create a life aligned with our deepest values and aspirations. So I encourage you to take a happy 15 minutes and envision attending your own funeral, writing your own obituary. That's the big end to begin with right now. Where do you want to go in this life? And once you know where you want to go, the universe will support you in how to get there. Thank you so much for listening. Blessings on your path until we meet again. This is Renee LaValle McKenna for Spiritual Psychology.